Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening for this a great session of IFD540 training brought to us by Avidyne and also by Trip Taylor, who will be presenting this evening. My name is Jeff Simon. I'm president of SocialFlight. And just a couple words about this. We're very excited to be able to do this, doing these webinar series with some of the leaders in the general aviation industry is one of the great benefits that it's our goal to bring through this free app and website for everyone's benefit. Our mission at SocialFlight is to get people flying more, frankly, to help the general aviation industry as a whole and really help promote it and get everyone doing more of what we all love. And so with that, I'd like to, first of all, thank Avidyne for helping make us possible and everything else that goes along with this evening's presentation, and introduce Trip Taylor. Trip has been flying since 1978, holds a commercial pilot certificate with single and multi-engine ratings. He's an active CFI and a Cirrus Platinum instructor with over 10,000 hours in Cirrus aircraft, which is certainly saying something there. Trip's flown 135 air taxi operations and training director for the COPA, the Cirrus Owners and Pilots Association, also managing their proficiency program. He works very closely with Avidyne on a variety of projects. He does individual instruction, and one of the most important things, and the reason he's with us tonight, is he does quite a bit of instruction in technically advanced aircraft. And this, obviously, there's some significant advantages to all of these fantastic avionics that the industry has gotten within the past, certainly few years plus. But with them come quite a few challenges. And so it really is important to have a service such as what Trip provides and be able to learn more so that our currency can be at a level that takes advantage of all the benefits that these devices and advanced avionics offer us, and so we get the benefits of them and not the overload that can be some of the downsides if you're not current on avionics. So with that, I'd like to hand things over to Trip. A couple quick housekeeping notes before I do that, though. There is a chat feature, and feel free to ask questions on that or note anything. I will try to get back to you, and at the appropriate time we'll address questions as we see them there, and I'll help moderate that as we go. There is both a dial-in for everybody on audio and also a way to do that on your computer through a downloadable app. And so with that, welcome, Trip.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate that introduction and appreciate what you do at SocialFlight. I was talking offline with Jeff for a few moments, and he was sharing a really interesting story about how a gentleman who had considered selling his airplane started using SocialFlight and decided to keep it because of the opportunities that he saw for doing things with his airplane that he didn't know about before. So that's a tremendous service you're offering. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored that Avidyne's made it possible, and thank you for what you're doing. With that said, you're looking at a very, very expensively produced slide on your screen with tremendously high production values. I thought maybe we'd let the IFD540 do the talking. When we get to the pictures of that, that'll be a whole lot prettier than this first slide. The second slide that we're going to look at is just a sort of an advertisement for the app. Those of you that might be interested in getting a little more information about and using the IFD540, there's an excellent app available in the Apple App Store that you can use on your iPad to practice. And a lot of the screenshots you'll see this evening are screenshots from that app. In fact, the very first slide I'll show you is a screenshot from that app. So it's free. There's an international and an American version. Has all the databases you need to try things in your local area. And I think you'll find it fairly intuitive and easy to use. So with that, let's take a tour of the IFD540. We're going to sort of go around the horn, starting at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Top left-hand corner of your screen, and start with powering on the IFD540. There's a power switch. It also doubles as a squelch switch and a volume switch. That's probably no big surprise. It essentially controls the radios and turns the unit on. We're all probably familiar with frequency swapping, and there's a frequency swap switch beside that. Now, not every avionics has a USB port. This is the USB port that you would use to update your databases and to load your approach charts into the unit. You can download them from Jeppesen and upload them to your unit via the USB port. There are 4 keys on the left that we call line select keys, and those line select keys will have functions associated with them to the right of the key. You're looking at a map view now, and the bottom 3 keys are available to land data, navigation data, and the weather overlay. And they're context sensitive. In other words, the top key doesn't have any options, so it wouldn't be functional at this point. In other screens, it will be functional. The bottom left knob is the COM nav manual tuning knob to allow you to tune the radios or for communication frequency or nav frequencies. And then we get to the center of the unit at the bottom, and this is the heart of the IFD540, in that what Avidyne calls a page and tab interface. And I want to just talk about that for a moment. The switches, and you can't really tell this on the picture, but they're concave, and they're rocker switches. If you'll notice in the middle of the screen, the map light is illuminated. That is the active rocker switch right now. And you can see above that on the screen, on the display of the screen, there are 2 options. One is called map and the other one is called chart. They kind of look like the tabs on file folders. If we were to push the right side of the map switch right now, it would tab over and show us charts, either airport charts or approach charts or arrivals, that sort of thing, but Jeppesen charts. You'll notice that box is lit in blue. We have that. That would be available to make changes or if there were messages that were showing. The next bottom right-hand knob is the IFD control knob, and that's the main user interface when you're not using touch. Sometimes, and I've flown with these units enough to know that sometimes it's bumpy, and it's nice to have something that you can gain purchase on the handle and grab the knob and make adjustments holding a knob rather than touching the screen. Touch screens are wonderful, but sometimes when they're bumpy, when the air is bumpy, it's nice to have that knob. On the right, there's the dedicated function keys. We'll talk about those as we go through the seminar today. The little white dot is where the ambient light sensor is to just dim the display automatically. And the upper right knob is the CDI source selection, which you choose between using the GPS and the nav radios. So we're going to move on, and we're going to look at a couple other things on the layout of the IFD540, and that is, I'm going to show you on the map a little tag to this that's written sideways that says data. Right now, we're looking at the map view, and that's really good for situational awareness. We can see the airplane is over the MSN VOR, which is near Madison, Wisconsin. But we don't know much more about our flight track than that. If we were to take our finger and put it over the little cyan oval that I've got there where it says data, what would happen is you would get a display that looks like this. We still have the map display, but now on the right-hand column, we have a series of data blocks. And these data blocks are configurable by the user. You can choose what information you want to display. In the current case, we have 0 time till we are overhead our current waypoint. We're right there. And 16 more minutes to get to our destination. There's a variety of other things there. And I'm going to show you a list of the options that are available. I don't want you to try to memorize this, but to give you an idea of the scope and breadth of the number of things that you can choose to put there. On the right data block, this is a part of the list, and I'm going to go one more page, and this is the rest. These are the different things that you could display on the right-hand side of the screen. I also want to show you that on the left-hand side of the screen, this unit is currently configured with 4 frequencies available. And you could choose to put more or less frequencies available. To use those frequencies, you would nominate them by tapping on, in this case, we have Madison approach. We tapped on that frequency, and we could hit the frequency swap button on the left of the unit. That would make that the active frequency if we did that. Now, I'm also showing you in this screen that I've moved from the map line select key in the bottom of the display to the FMS tab. And the FMS tab has 4 options that say FPL, which is our current option. That's the flight plan. Info, route, waypoint, and nearest. And this is great. This gives you a lot of information, but not a lot of situational awareness. And we can correct that. If you'll notice now, there's a tab on the left-hand side of the screen that says Map. If we placed our finger over the map, and you should be able to see my cursor. I'm pointing at it with my cursor. If we touch that part of the screen,
I'm going to interrupt for just 1 second. We're getting a little audio problem here. If we could have you a little closer to the mic, and also if everyone could mute, you should be automatically muted, but it's possible that someone may not be. So if everyone could just make sure that they are, and we won't have any more fading in and out. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, I'll get a little closer to the microphone for you.
You are now muted. You are now unmuted.
Available by clicking on the map, and this is how that would display. We have the same information. We have the map displaying, and on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the waypoints that are selected for this particular flight plan. And if you sort of cock your head to the left, you can see that we're currently operating on Victor 9. Again, in the Madison, Wisconsin area. So this gives you a combination of situational awareness by showing you a map and the information you need to make changes to a flight plan if you needed to based on some ATC directions. So that's great. That's all good information. That's a little overview and tour of the unit. Let's get to using the unit. And the first thing that we want to do about using the unit is ask ourselves some questions. What are the kinds of things that controllers ask us to do? Well, they'll have us fly headings, and I think we can accomplish that. We don't even need an FMS for that. But we'll oftentimes be asked to proceed direct to a waypoint, intercept a portion of our route, maybe an airway, join a radial. We could be asked to hold. We wouldn't want to be asked to hold most cases, but we could be asked to hold. And there's a few other things that air traffic controllers might ask us to do if we were flying along with an IFD540 or any other avionics for that matter. So we're going to start out with a scenario that says, let's depart from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. When I created this seminar, we were in Oshkosh, and I thought that'd be a good place to leave from. Let's depart out of the Oshkosh airport from leaving AirVenture and heading down to St. Louis. So before we depart, when the unit powers up, there's a few things that we can do, and I'm not going to go over these, but there's a few things you can do because the airplane might be equipped in different ways. If you have a fuel totalizer, you can set your fuel state to full fuel. You can load all your frequencies before you get going. You can get your checklist. You can add your own checklist to the unit. And then we can add the flight plan with GeoFill and Preview. And we will be doing that. Also, you could display charts to show where you're taxiing as well. That's a little hard to do in a static environment like this seminar. So we'll go on to getting an IFR clearance from Oshkosh to go to the Spirit of St. Louis Airport in St. Louis. And this is the routing. This is my tail number if you want to follow me around the country, 91 November Echo. And we're going to go from Oshkosh. The first fix that we're given is the Baden intersection. Then Victor 9, the St. Louis VOR, and then the Spirit of St. Louis Field. And I say we can enter this exactly as it's written into the IFD540. Now, if you take your iPad out and take a look at that route has at least 30 waypoints. And there are several turns along Victor 9 at intersections. So we'll get that loaded up pretty quickly with the IFD540. And so we're going to power the unit up, and it's going to look like the screen in front of you now. The origin airport is Oshkosh. And there's a cursor here in the cyan color, a line below Oshkosh, that's waiting for us to put our flight plan in. The first fix for our flight plan was an intersection named Baden. So as we start to type, we can tap the screen, and it'll bring up a keyboard that looks like this. When it does, I've typed the letters B, A, and D, and at that point, it offered me the choice of the intersection named Baden. That's what I wanted. So I'd hit the Enter tab on the screen. I could press the Enter button on the screen. I could press the Enter button on the unit itself. And that will place Baden into the flight plan. And I'm going to show you the flight plan a little bit differently now. Remember when we were talking a little bit earlier, we didn't get a lot of situational awareness by just looking at that list of waypoints. What we've done now is we're displaying a map with the flight plan beside it. And on the right side of the screen, we have Oshkosh and our first fix, Baden. And we have the insertion point here waiting for our next assignment, which is Victor 9.
You are now muted. You are now unmuted.
In order to do Victor... I can hear other noise outside, so I don't know.
I got kicked out of the audio, and now I'm back. I just dialed back in, but it kicked me out for some reason.
Okay.
I'm going to mute.
All right, stand by. We have a technical glitch. Can you hear me on screen now?
I can hear you fine. I don't know if anybody else is on, but I got kicked off. I don't know if everybody else did.
Okay, all right.
I can hear now. I lost it too.
Okay, I don't know what happened. I could hear people on the line. I could hear people on the line at all times. It was actually fairly noisy. But if you can hear me now, we'll continue on.
We're all set. Sorry about that.
No worries. No worries. Let's get our, sounds like Darth Vader's actually on the line there somewhere. It's pretty noisy. We need to load Victor 9 onto this flight plan. In order to do that, we could do a number of things. We could tap on any black space on the screen, or we could press the Enter button. And when we do, we'll be presented with a list of waypoints or airways. And in this case, you can see Victor 9, which is part of our clearance, is one of the options. This brings up, how do we get Victor 9? Well, we have this knob right here, or we can use our finger. We can use the knob on the bottom right, or we can tap with our finger on Victor 9, whichever you want, and then press the Enter button, or if we just tap with our finger, I'll show you what happens.
You are now unmuted.
What we get is a unique display, and I need to take a moment to show you what you're seeing, to talk about what you're seeing on the screen. What happened in that, by tapping Victor 9, is the map reoriented itself into a north-up mode. And by reorienting into a north-up mode, it also displayed all the waypoints along Victor 9. And Victor 9 goes to the north. You can see Green Bay up to the north. And it goes south towards Rockford. You can see that near the bottom of the screen, and continues on to St. Louis. And when I mentioned situational awareness, we're on the ground. We kind of need to know which way we need to build that Victor 9. We don't want to go to the north. We want to go to the south. So we get a list of waypoints, and we go, we better see on our list the list that has Rockford in it as opposed to the list that has Green Bay. If it was a Green Bay, we'd be going the wrong way on Victor 9. So we're going to select Victor 9 and press the Enter button, or tap the screen. Just to be a second tap of the screen right there. And that brings down a drop-down list of all of the waypoints that are on Victor 9. Well, the exit point for our airway was St. Louis VOR, STL. And there's a couple of ways we could do it. We can get to that. We can scroll down this list with this knob, or we could tap here and type in STL, and that would get us loaded all the way down. You can see here we are in Oshkosh and follow the route south to St. Louis. And you can see there's 2 or 3 turns in that airway. 1, 2, 3, 4 turns in the airway at different intersections. So we're going to enter that by tapping the enter button, and we're going to get a new box that says, okay, what do you want for the last waypoint? And we're going to type in KSUS for our Spirit of St. Louis Airport. And now we have the complete, in sort of 3 steps, the complete flight plan in. Now that flight plan's really, really, really long. It's got 30 waypoints in it. And it's kind of hard to verify that we've entered it all correctly by scrolling up and down through 30 waypoints. So I want you to notice for just a moment on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a tab that says View. And the view currently says that the view is expanded. Well, if there's something there, that means there must be more than one option. And sure enough, if we tap the left button associated with the View button, we will go from a expanded view to a compact view. And I want to show you what that looks like. This is what it looks like. We're now in compact view. And if you look at what's on the screen now, we have Oshkosh, Baden, Victor 9 with St. Louis as an exit point, the VOR, and the Spirit of St. Louis, which is exactly what our clearance is. And we can see that all in front of us. What will happen as we go from the Baden and leave the Baden intersection, as we fly along, the unit will automatically expand and show us our down path waypoints. But this is a nice way to verify that we entered our clearance correctly. Okay, so we've got our clearance to Spirit of St. Louis Airport, and now what we want to do is we want to start flying. So we take off, and we get clearances all the time as pilots flying IFR, and very often what we're assigned as we depart is a heading. We don't usually get cleared right on course as we're leaving a towered airport. We might get some sort of heading. And somewhat further down the line, we might be asked to join our route or maybe join a radial. I want to talk to you about that just a little bit. We've managed to get down path, and we're on our current leg going to Madison. But for some reason, air traffic control has a need to move us further to the south to take care of a conflict. And they asked us to fly a heading of 180 and join the 050 radial for MSN. I'm sorry, that's not on the screen. The MSN VOR, and track it inbound. I'm going to go back to the previous screen, and we can see currently our course to Madison is the 216-degree radial, or bearing to the station. And we're now going to be asked to fly a different course in there, and we're asked to fly a certain heading to get there. We want to fly south. We're tracking south on a 220 heading now. We're going to be asked to turn to the left. Then we're going to intercept a new radial to get to Madison instead of the original flight plan route. And normally that would be fairly complicated in terms of programming and that sort of thing. I want to show you how you would do it with the IFD540. So here we go. We're bombing along, headed down to Madison, and I've circled in the upper right-hand corner of the screen in a magenta, seemed appropriate to me, a magenta circle, the CDI knob. And all we do is push the end of that knob. That's the procedure to change from going direct to via GPS to OBS mode. And don't let OBS mode scare you. It's not, I usually say OBS stands for oh boy, but it's not so bad. We're just changing the way the box is doing its navigating. We'll push the button, and normally this would say GPS. In fact, I'll take you back to the previous slide. Actually, it doesn't say GPS. We'll see that in a moment. And it would say GPS. We push the button, and it now says OBS. And we need to change to the 050 radial and intercept it and track it inbound. There's a little bit of a catch with that. The 050 radial and track inbound means we need to fly a 230 heading or course to get to Madison. And in order to accomplish that, we're going to push the button here and turn the knob till 230 is displayed right here. And that has moved the magenta line from its previous position to the desired position that the ATC has asked for. We're now flying roughly a 180 heading, I guess a 200 heading. We haven't finished our turn. And we'll intercept this and track on from Madison to our flight plan route. So we've joined a radial. I'm going to take you into a different part of the country and a different scenario. And this is a fairly common scenario. You'll get a clearance, and the clearance will read something like, departing the Chandler Airport, this is in Arizona near Phoenix, radar vectors to Victor 105, Tucson VOR, and then the Tucson Airport. And we've got a couple of problems with that if we don't know the route already. If we're, say, like me, from the East Coast, I don't know the routings around there, and I don't know where Victor 105 goes, and I need to get this programmed. I'm going to show you with a screenshot from the iPad what it looks like. On the screen, what you'll see is we're currently at the Chandler Airport. And I've just made in blue what Victor 105 looks like. It leaves the, this is the Phoenix VOR, goes down to the Stanfield VOR, and continues on down. There's the Allman intersection and carries on to the southeast to get to Tucson. Our problem is, with the clearance we were given, we're not given an entry point for Victor 105. And I want to use Procedure Preview to help me find a logical starting point. And this might be a little counterintuitive, but we know that the ending point of our route, let me back up, is Tucson, and we know that's on Victor 105. So if we loaded Tucson as a waypoint into our flight plan on the IFD540, which I've done here, we can now use Procedure Preview to see where that airway goes. So I'm going to hit Enter, and it's going to give me the list of airways. The airway Victor 105 is our assigned airway, so I'm going to tap on that. And as in the previous example, here is the airway and the various flight plan waypoints, or maybe not flight plan waypoints, all the waypoints that are on the airway. And we're here, and we're going down to the south. We're at Chandler and headed to the south. If we loaded, and my arrow kind of hides it a little bit, this waypoint is PXR. If we chose PXR as our very first waypoint, we could just load that and continue to load Victor 105. So what I would do at this point is go, okay, I now know what I need to know to program the flight plan. And I'm going to go back in and I'm going to load PXR as my first waypoint. I'm going to take out Tucson. And I want PXR as my first waypoint. Then I'm going to bring up Victor 105 and have Tucson as my exit point. And I failed to give you the last slide, but it shows now our airway from PXR to Tucson. Now we simply need to fly the heading we're given or assigned, and fly the radar vector and join one of the segments that we see on the screen. We would do that by any variety of reasons depending on how your autopilot works. So take another scenario. Another scenario is departing out of a fairly busy airspace and getting a departure procedure. I want to take you to Manassas, Virginia, and every time a pilot leaves Manassas IFR, they're going to get what I think is currently the Arsenal 4 departure, and I'm going to show you that plate. This is the Arsenal 4. We're going to look at a clearance that has us what's called the Arsenal 4 with the Montebello transition. All of the routing from this airport goes first to the Casanova VOR and then on to whatever the transition route is. But you can see, if we look at the departure procedure, it has very different requirements if you're departing to the north versus departing to the south. And in fact, if you're departing to the south, it can be somewhat problematic if you don't do it correctly, because there's two restricted areas not very far from the end of the field. So we want to be sure to make that turn in a timely manner, and that's upon reaching 800 feet. We want to make that turn and go down this path if we're departing to the south. And as luck would have it today, the weather is such that we're going to depart to the south. So we'll read the requirements: climb to 800 feet on the runway heading, then a right turn to the Casanova Vortex, Gadsden intersection at 2000, and then Casanova at 3000, and then on to our Montebello transition. Let's look at the screen. So we're located at Manassas. And we've used this button right here, this procedure button. It's one of the buttons on the right of the screen. We select a procedure, and it offered us the only departure procedure available for Manassas is the Arsenal 4. So we're going to select that. We're going to push enter or the end of the knob or tap on Arsenal 4. We have a variety of ways we can do that. And now it says, okay, which one of the transitions would you like? And we were given the Montebello transition. So we'll put our finger over Montebello. That'll select Montebello. And lo and behold, it's loaded the departure procedure. But if we look at the screen right now, that shows us going to the north and over to the east or west. And that's not what we're supposed to do, because these departure procedures are runway dependent. So if we look at our flight plan, that's on the FMS tab, we can see that the Arsenal 4 Montebello transition is loaded, but we have not yet selected a runway. And so we can tap on that section of the display with our finger. And usually on the ground, since you're loading things on the ground, there's not much turbulence on the ground. That'd probably be the way I'd do it. If for some reason I were trying to load something in the air, I might use this knob and move the cursor point to that location. But I'm going to tap the screen, and it'll allow me to load 1-6 left. I've got a slide out of order here, but I'm going to show you. This is currently what our waypoint our arrival looks like. And now I've loaded 1-6 left from the drop-down menu. Once I tap that, there'll be a drop-down menu. I've selected 1-6 left, and we've now added the climb to 800 feet and the turn to Gadsden. And I'll show you what that looks like. Now you can see there's the airplane at Manassas. We'll be departing to the south. There's the route to Gadsden. There's the Casanova VOR and our on-path legs. So now when we depart, the airplane will give us guidance and the IFD540 will give us guidance on how to get to Gadsden, and we'll comply with the requirements for the departure. And we'll hopefully avoid the restricted area and the associated phone call that comes with that. I'm going to go over another routing, another thing that happens, and that is sometimes we'll plan, and I oftentimes file direct somewhere. I'm going to go to the West Coast now. We'll move all over the country here. We're going to leave from Santa Maria and go to Monterey. And if we've been trying to do this week, that might have been a little bit exciting, because they launched a rocket here in the Vandenberg area, about halfway across our route. And I'm pretty certain they wouldn't want us anywhere near there. In fact, there's several restricted areas there that we need to avoid. And so as we're flying along, air traffic control says, well, we can't let you go direct, but we can let you go to this VOR up here. It's a ROM. I believe that's called the Prince VOR. We could go up here and then let you carry on to your Monterey. So you're going to get a new clearance. Just be advised, ready to copy, and they give us a clearance that says we're going to go to ROM, the Prince VOR. And one of the features that is highly touted of the 540 is that we can rubber band a route, meaning if you're familiar with using ForeFlight, we can put our finger on the route and drag it over to the ROM VOR and carry on and have a new flight plan added to our waypoint graphically, or our flight plan graphically. Now, I need to share with you something about how the current software of the IFD540 versus a very imminent release update software. Currently, you cannot rubber band the active leg. Right now, and I want to make sure we talk about this, the leg from Fabeg to Monterey, the leg from here to here, is not active. And we know it's not active because it's in this Barber Polar candy cane alternating magenta and white stripe. The current leg is apparently Santa Maria from Fabeg. We're a little off the screen here, can't see much of it, but there we are. The solid magenta is here. So just to recap, I can change this routing now in the current software, but if this was my current leg, using the current software, if you were to try to drag it over to the Prince VOR and this Fabeg to Monterey leg was active, it wouldn't work now, but in the new release of software that's imminent in a matter of weeks, you should be able to even drag the active leg and move it over to put in a new waypoint. But I'm going to show you how that works. I'm going to show you what it looks like when you do. We're going to put our finger right on the middle of the leg, right there, and we're going to drag over to the ROM VOR. And when we do, it says, I would call it the Prince VOR, it's the Priest VOR. You can do, it's going to give you a couple of options. It's going to say, do you want a rubber band waypoint? And it has a convention, RB00 and whatever the last one you use. Rubber band waypoint exactly where you let go of your finger, or we notice that the Priest VOR is very nearby. Is that what you are trying to drag your finger to? And of course, we want to go to the Priest VOR, so we would press our finger over this area, and that would make our route go to the Priest VOR. The other thing we could do is we could hit direct and go type in ROM. If we do that, it will activate a leg to ROM, but I'm going to show you the behavior by doing that. So if this is the case that the air was bumpy and we couldn't do the rubber banding, we just hit direct, the direct key, and typed ROM and hit enter. This leg here to Priest will become active, but it's going to show up differently in the flight plan. What it's going to do is it's going to create ROM as the direct waypoint and create a gap in the route. Because what you might be getting is more of a reroute, and you could continue to add the additional parts of the reroute before you close the gap to Monterey. In our case, we didn't have any additional routing, so we want to close our gap, and I'll show you how to close the gap. If you see the gap en route, we just want to put our finger over the gap, and it'll make the cursor look different. It'll make it, instead of a line, it'll make it a box. And when it does that, it'll display in the bottom left of your screen, you'll see Connect ROM and KMRY. Well, that's what we want to do. And so we can tap that button, and when we do, it connects the two waypoints, just like this. Well, let's say we're headed to Monterey, and en route, it turns out there's somebody ahead of us. And they're flying the approach into Monterey, and they've asked us to hold at the Priest VOR when we get there. And that usually strikes fear in grown men, and I don't think it's quite as tough with an IFD540 as it is in many other avionics or doing it by hand. And let me show you how you'd insert a hold. And I use the following logic when I talk about entering a hold. The first thing we have to do to enter a hold at the ROM VOR is we have to get there. And then once we get there, we're going to enter the hold. So the logic that the IFD540 uses is what we'll do is create a waypoint that is the hold, and it'll be immediately after the position at which you do want to hold. So in this case, the ROM VOR, we want to hold immediately after that. So we positioned our cursor immediately after ROM and before MRY. And we can type the enter button. We can type on this little black space between the two waypoints, and we'll get a box that looks like that. And look at this option right here, option number 2, hold at ROM. If we press hold at ROM, it'll highlight and tap it again, and we will get, or hit the enter button, we'll get inserted into our flight plan a hold south of ROM, right turns, 1 minute legs on a 339 course, bearing to the station, to ROM. Now, let me tell you what the convention is. Its default convention is to comply with the FARs for airplanes of our type that are piston. It's 1 minute turns with right turns, 1 minute legs. And the convention is whatever course is your direct course, it's a direct course of 339, will be your inbound course. And oftentimes, if you're assigned a hold, that's what it is. You can edit any of these options, the right-hand turns, the minutes. You can change it from minutes to miles. Mileage you can change, and the inbound course you can change by tapping in this area or maneuvering the cursor into these fields, and you can edit them to anything you want. Well, in our case, we're going to get the privilege of flying 5-mile legs, so we don't have to turn so much. I'll show you an edit of that. Can't do it live on the screen, but I can show you that now I've changed that to 5, instead of minutes, nautical miles, and 5 miles. And let's look at the screen and see what that looks like on the screen. We're currently flying to the priest VOR, and you can see the hold depicted. And you can see the hold is depicted in the magenta and white, indicating that's the next leg. Okay, well, we're in holding. The other airplane has gone missed. It turns out today is an unlucky day. The Monterey Airport, as sometimes happens on the California coast, a little bit foggier than minimums will allow. We're uncomfortable with trying to fly that approach. We need to maybe look at diverting and going somewhere else. And that is where we could use the data link that's available on the IFD540 to look at the METARs in the arrival area and nearby stations so that we can look ahead and plan for an alternate. I'm going to show you that screen. Unfortunately, I can't show you the METAR because the simulator doesn't have the weather on it, but here is the information about Monterey. It is in the FMS tab and under Info. You can put anything you want in here, any waypoint, VOR, airport, and you can see it's got communication information, it's got runway information, departures, arrivals, and approaches, and on the bottom, weather. And if we tap on that, it will offer the various weather options. Now, I don't have any listed there, but we're going to have to take my word for it. Today was not a good day at Monterey, and we're going to need to find an alternate, someplace that would be a diversion airport where the weather's a little better, maybe a little further inland. And that brings up another one of the buttons. We've gone over the direct button. We've gone over a procedure button. Now let's talk about the nearest button. We're still in the FMS tab, and I'm going to press nearest. And this first press of nearest is going to give me the closest airports to actually, the first press is going to show you the closest airports to your present position. But what I've done is something, I think, a little cleverer than that. I pushed the nearest button a second time, and that shows you the airports nearest your destination. That's especially useful for weather planning. Now that I've done this, and I've got a list of, I pressed the nearest button twice and got the nearest airports to MRY, what I want to do is find a good alternate airport. So I'm going to do this. The nearest tab is showing here, and I'm going to hide the map for a moment. I'm going to tap my finger on the nearest screen, on this little tab right here. And when I do, it shows this airport information for the nearest airports in the full screen. What you can't see that you would see if you were flying is the METAR color-coded flags for these airports that report weather. And you could pick by just looking at the flag, well, you know, the blue flags are VFR flags. The yellow and red flags are IFR. You could find an airport that was maybe yellow and not low IFR on this list. You could select it from this list, tap on it, hit direct, hit enter, and you would be immediately heading to your diversion airport. It's that simple. You would just, if you wanted to pick Salinas, you tap Salinas, hit the direct button, hit the enter button, confirm that you want to do it by hitting enter a second time, and you'd be trucking over to Salinas to fly an approach to get in. So speaking of approaches, let's talk about how you would fly an approach and the workflow that works, I think works best for an IFD540. So I'm going to take you back to near my home airport. I fly out of the Lima Zulu Uniform Airport, which is just northeast of Atlanta. And we're going to go to the Anderson Airport, which is in South Carolina. As we're en route, the AWOS indicated that the Anderson Airport favors runway 23. And what our task is to load, brief the approach to go into Anderson on runway 23. So here's our current flight plan. We're just heading direct to Anderson. And here's what it looks like. It's a fairly short flight to the northeast. And we need to look at flying this approach. My suggestion is, tap on the FMS key and then hit the procedure button. So we're going to tap FMS and hit procedure, and up comes a list of the available approaches. Now, in our first example, the map oriented itself into the north up mode, and it did that again. The map is now oriented north up, and we can go through the variety of approaches, and it looks like the only approach for runway 23 is this LNAV plus V approach for runway 23, and so we're going to fly that one. We're going to select it. So we'll place our finger over that and highlight RNAV 23, tap it again or hit enter, and now you'll see on the screen, I'm going to go back one display. We tapped it, we tapped RNAV 23, and now you can see there's an approach showing on our screen. What we need is a transition. So I'm going to tap it again, and here are the various transitions. And from our vantage point, here we are coming in from the northeast. It looks like the optimal transition for us is this waypoint called Kulig, up here a little bit further to the north. That would probably be the transition I would pick. That's the one that's highlighted here. And if we load it, we hit enter there, that will load our approach. And here the approach is loaded with an activate approach button available to us whenever we're cleared to begin the approach. So that's how I do that. Now, the other thing is, if you select the option on the IFD40 to load the approach charts, you have a very quick way to bring up the approach chart for this RNAV 23 approach. And if you'll notice right now, this cursor, this is the cursor, it's positioned over, it looks like maybe somebody's torn a piece of paper and put it in the corner there. That's what it's supposed to represent, is a torn piece of paper, trying to say to you, hey, there's charts here. So if you tap your finger over that section of this waypoint box, it'll bring up not just the approaches, but bring up the approach that you just loaded. And you can see it shows Kulig, Oxtick, Bufsy, all the waypoints highlighted. Our flight plan has selected Kulig, and you can scroll through the various options and of how you want to view the chart. You have 3 or 4 views you can use, and that'll allow you to fly the chart, fly the approach. So that's what I have. We've got, looks like maybe about 10 minutes available. I'm going to show you the last slide. If you want more information about where to get the simulator, You can go to IFD540.com. And if there are questions that anybody would like answered, I'll try to go over those with you. But I thank you very much for attending.
So let's take a look at what we have here on the list. Again, thanks everybody. Apologize for a couple of the audio problems that we had early on. I'm not sure whether Tom Harper is available at the moment, but there were some questions about the MLB 100 and how that plays on the 540 and availability. And so that's certainly something that if you're there, you can chime in on, Tom. And then the other thing to talk about is we've had some questions on recording of the webinar, and there will be a recording of the webinar available. It'll be available through SocialFlight. You will get a link to that emailed to you as soon as the presentation is over, and it will take us a few hours to get that all set up, but after that you'll be able to watch it on there. One of the questions we have here is, Trip, do you know anything about whether or not you can dock the IFD540 for playing with it on the ground in a commander dock, just like people do with the Garmin units?
I'm not aware of a dock. I would think for all practical purposes, the iPad app is almost functionally equivalent to any dock that you would use. I realize it does have the knobs or the actual physical buttons, but I found the iPad app to be good enough to do any practice I need, and I can create any scenario that I wanted. So I would recommend that highly. I just don't think it's been in the field long enough for somebody to create a dock. I'm sure, depending on how many are out there, somebody will find that market, but I'm not aware of that. That would be another good question for Tom Harper.
And I'll certainly chime in also on that. That simulator's great. I've been using it to practice on. It's available on the PC. It's also available on iOS. And my understanding from Tom is that they will be working on a version of it for Android that will be coming out. They just don't have a date on that yet. But certainly the PC version will be able to do that. Tom's on, but apparently we don't hear him. Let's,
you are now unmuted.
How about now, Tom?
You are now muted.
All right, we'll have to follow up with that. Not sure what's happening on that side of things, but we will certainly go into IFD540.com, get the information on the IFD540. There are links there where you can actually email in your questions, and then we can certainly do that. Tom is answering these as best he can without the audio, and letting you know that the MLB will be available in early 2015. And they do also have provisional wiring diagrams available for it, so people can look at pre-wiring in advance. And so there isn't a deposit program or something similar to what there was with the IFD 540, but certainly I think that a lot of people are very interested in getting that and having it available for the unit. I would personally recommend when you do the simulator, the ones that are on the mobile devices, simply because it gives you a much better way to interact with the touch screen itself and see a lot about how it can, how it works and how you can expect to be using it within the aircraft itself. So again, IFD540.com, and then email your questions there. That's probably the best way to get everything else dealt with. We really appreciate everyone's time this evening. We certainly know your time's valuable, and we invite you to come back. This is going to be a series of many presentations. We've had them from, again, the leading companies in aviation, from Continental Motors and Sennheiser having one tomorrow on hearing loss and hearing protection in pilots with Robbie, the Robbie will be coming on. And so there's an entire educational series we can get through the winter months here if you happen to be in the northern climates, and participate in aviation by dialing in. So thank you again for your time. Thanks, Trip. Very much appreciate it. And we'll get that recording out to everybody. Take care.
Good night.